I think he's got a haircut. He's had his hair cut. He's just, beard's growing nice.
He must be at a conference.
I think he is.
Okay, I'm going to call the select board meeting of Tuesday, November 14th to order. First item is approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there anything anybody would like to add or delete from the agenda?
Just note that under 8B, we also have the declaration of intent to bond for those South Street improvements, and Emily will go into that with you. And then under 8C, we have the declaration of intent to bond for the design of Baker Lane.
Well, that answers my question, because I had absolutely no idea how we were going to borrow money without having a bond. And I thought maybe I'd missed something somewhere along the way.
All right.
Boy, I feel good about myself.
So, addition to 8B and 8C, declarations to bond. Anything else? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the agenda with minor additions, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Next is the approval of the consent agenda.
I'll move.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there anything in the consent agenda anybody would like to call attention to? I'd like to just point out that our policy review committee is started up again, and I know it's later in the meeting, we'll talk about it, but saw those minutes and that looks good. So all in favor of approving the consent agenda as drafted, signify by saying aye. Aye.
There was an airport report in there too as well. And I think this is the second one in a row, quarter, so.
Yeah, we got it started back up thanks to a concerned citizen reminding us about it. And I think that try to keep that going. Citizen comments.
I just got a letter from the state about the underground fuel tank at the airport. They're planning to replace that. And I saw all the addresses are included. So that's good.
So we got it right this
Yeah,
time?
right. I think I saw the press cards were complaining, so I saw theirs on it.
Good. Is there anybody with a hand up in the audience for citizen comments? I don't see anybody in the audience. So we're going to move on, and we're going to go to item number 6, Phase 2 report on Turning Point Center. Is Danny Wallace with us?
Is JMHOL Danielle Wallace? Okay, I think we're running a little bit early, so she may join us.
Any chance Danny Wallace is out there?
I'll keep an eye out for her.
Okay, we'll bring Emily in and get started on Public Works. Good evening, Emily. Yeah.
So the first on my piece of it is we received the agreement from Wright Pierce Engineering for the wastewater treatment facility upgrade. The state has already signed off on it and approved it, so we've gotten through that hurdle. Now we just need the approval from the select board. Essentially, they have proposed a cost of $251,000 for the peer review and the amendment, and then an additional not to exceed amount of $20,000 for funding assistance. So the $20,000 matches what we already had with Boyle Tanner. I think Boyle Tanner's original number was slightly lower. Let me find my notes. But we added the main pump, looking at the main pump station. Into the, Hoyle Taylor's was originally 279, but then we added the main pump station into this. So I think it kind of comes out the same, but we are getting the additional, engineering on the pump station, which after the flooding this summer became readily apparent that we should probably be taking into consideration during this effort.
I have a question. What is it, a peer review? How does that work in this case?
So the preliminary engineering report is
Oh,
the
that's-
first phase of this
Okay,
work.
so
and that
peer
was
is an acronym?
Completed by Tata Howard. The state did not fully approve what they submitted. So Wright Pierce and formerly Hoyle Tanner, were doing a peer review on what had been submitted to make modifications to it and amend it so that we could have an approved preliminary engineering report from the state.
Okay,
And I think the key component is by calling it a peer review, it gets reimbursed by the state still within the SRF funding.
okay. And you say this contract is now going to be $20,000 more than the previous one? Is it?
No, so Hoyle Tanner's was originally 279.
Okay.
279,000, which included the 20,000 towards funding assistance. So they started out at 259. This one starts out at 251. We've already paid Hoyle Tanner 41,460 to date. We did close out that contract, so that's our final payment on that one. But we're getting the additional effort of the pump station, the main pump station being looked at. So really, it comes out, when I was talking to the lead engineer on it, she thought that their rates were actually slightly lower than Hoyle Tanner's, but because we're adding that additional component, it's a little bit hard to completely decipher.
Okay.
It's not a clean exchange.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on that?
I'll move to approve the preliminary engineering report peer review and addendum agreement with Wright Pierce for $251,000 for the peer review and an amount not to exceed $20,000 for related funding assistance.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Comments or questions? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Looks like it's unanimous.
Okay,
Okay, next is the police station, I don't know what the building's called, the storage building that has the large bays that they keep, different vehicles in for impoundment and whatnot in investigations. That building is having, that side of the building with the garage bays is having a lot of issues with humidity and moisture, similar to what we saw in the other half of the building. We did seal off the other side of the building with a steel door during the efforts last spring, but the police department has been experiencing a lot of mold and just moisture impacting their vehicles. And so we called Newton to try to come in and do some brainstorming for some, just how we can keep air circulating in there better and try to dehumidify it as best as possible. It's a little bit tricky because the bay doors open. So when they do, then you're just letting in that whole mass of humidity again. So it's a little bit harder to isolate it. But what they suggested was doing 2 ceiling fans to at least keep things circulating in there. And then starting with 1 dehumidifier, the one that they initially proposed, which is in this packet, is slightly different than what we discussed at the infrastructure committee meeting. The one that he proposed, I forget the dollar value, it was a little bit less money. But Luther Tenney recommended this other brand that he's had success with, that's where the not to exceed 3,500, I forget the actual dollar value that he found, but he looked up at the meeting. So I can circle back with Dennis on that one if that's something he'd be able to get, but Luther had experience with it, so it seemed valuable.
Does these fans run on a sensor? They come on when it's needed, or
I
how
think
does
they
it
would
work?
just stay on. The fans would just stay on to keep flow moving in there. There's a wall mounted heating unit, so it helps circulate that. There isn't I don't believe there's an air exchange unit in there. And there's no like heat pump or dehumidifier in there at this point. But the police have had to remove seats from the back seats of vehicles, and now there's also issues with the flooring in the mobile command unit from moisture.
So
Is this all from this flooding this year, or has it been a problem before?
Unfortunately not. No, it was prior to that. I don't know. I don't know when they brought it. They contacted me about it it was this summer, July, August, but I think the molding had been going on for quite some time. I don't know if it had been communicated or not to be part of the previous project.
Okay.
And I don't think it was looked at from the engineering and the architectural aspect in the previous work.
Did that facility have a lot of moisture in the basement to start with?
Yeah, there used to be standing water.
Standing water.
I
down
fell in that.
That's what I was remembering, exactly.
so these,
Is one humidifier gonna be enough to even make a difference? Dehumidifier?
We were trying, I don't know the answer to that. I think this is the part of the building that's just on the slab. Luther's thought was that without vapor barrier, it would still be getting moisture from the portion that is on the basement.
So the infrastructure committee talked about like a two-pronged approach, looking at a longer-term solution, but taking these immediate steps.
To at least
just to
start
do
reducing
something.
it?
Yeah.
these are pretty cost-wise small contracts, but is there a lot of wiring to do the fans? Because I looked online, the fans cost $280 a piece.
The
So
commercial.
there's already brackets there, so Dennis thought it'd be really easy to get them wired.
So we've got $4,000 in labor to install the fans. So
These are commercial fans, right?
I looked online because I looked at the estimate in it. I just looked online and the fan is, I think, $280 a fan. So yeah, it's got the word commercial next to it. So
We're going to come up with a plan to remedy it. Essentially, there's a stormwater line that runs sort of intersect with the overflow pipe. And so when the storm water overtopped, it just completely destroyed the outlet pipe. So we came up with a plan, working with FEMA mitigation in Otter Creek to realign the stormwater, put it into a closed pipe so that it can run in parallel. It's a really steep slope to get down there, so we had to coordinate with the property owner next door and clear some trees. But I think we're finally at a point now where we're able to move forward with the realignment. I reached out to a few multiple contractors to see what ability they would have to get it done this year. And only one of them was able to in the time frame that we were hoping. So Champlain Construction gave us a quote they gave us a not to exceed quote. Working with FEMA, they wanted us to start procuring projects with lump sums as opposed to time and material, which baffled me to some degree. But so I subsequently went back to Champlain and asked them to at least break it out for us here. So they did break it out. That's what's in the packet. It came to $163,404. But definitely a little. It's a bit of a. There's still some room for unknowns in there, just because the site is so tricky to access. So we're asking for approval for not to exceed $175,000 to get that work done as soon as possible. And that will be a FEMA supported effort.
I move to authorize the town manager to negotiate with Champlain Construction to conduct repairs and upgrades at the town's wastewater pump station number 3 for an amount not to exceed $175,000.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any questions or comments on that? So they're gonna be able to get that done before, like, right off, they're going on to it?
Yeah, that was the goal. Nobody else could get to it before mid-December, and we really wanted to get in there before seasons really started changing, so they're prepared to start.
Wow. Yeah, and FEMA's, what's percentage that they pay of this? Is that a 90% or 100% or?
Is it 87.5?
87.5 for the public assistance side, and then mitigation gets a slightly different piece of it. So the stormwater realignment will go through mitigation. The overflow pipe reinstallation will go through public assistance until we don't replace it with clay pipe. Anything in addition to replacing it with clay pipe then goes over to mitigation.
Keeping your stuff organized after this is probably a big challenge because their organization is different than what we would normally organize it as.
It's a little bit of a lit. I think the biggest hurdle through the August storm is that we have insurance claims that then FEMA picks up the difference on, so we have to track it for both.
Yeah.
We have federal highway claims that nobody else will cover, but it's only on certain roads, and then we have straight FEMA claims.
It's a good thing you have the master budgeteer as your boss, so.
Emily's been doing the
No,
lion's share of the work.
we have seen the capacity that she has, so. Okay, well, sounds good. All in favor of approving the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. It's unanimous. Skate park.
Onto the fun stuff. Middlebury Skate Park project came to the infrastructure committee requesting support for submitting a grant application to the Vermont Outdoor Recreation Economic Collaborative to help fund the construction of the concrete skate park at the rec park. There's no match requirement, but it is a reimbursement grant. So I believe the maximum they can ask for is $375,000, which puts them in pretty good shape for the overall project. From the sounds of it, it's historically been granted to sort of different avenues, but they did give some similar program examples that did receive this funding, so they thought we had a pretty good chance of getting it.
Wow. So this would put it on the map.
We put it on the map for sure.
Close.
Yep.
Okay. Any questions? Pleasure of the board.
I move to authorize the Middlebury Skate Park project to submit on behalf of the town of Middlebury a grant application to the Vermont Outdoor Recreation Economic Collaborative to seek funding support for the proposed Middlebury Skate Park. Furthermore, the town manager is directed to determine the procurement rules related to possible town support of the related geotechnical engineering study.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any questions, comments? No? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye, sorry.
Okay. A soft unanimous. And we're on to the main pump station.
Back to the less fun stuff. So the main pump station, you're all aware, we lost 3 pumps in the August flooding. It's back up and running on the rebuilt pumps, so we've finally removed the bypass. But there is significant concern that those rebuilt pumps that are now 20 years old will see issues in the near future. So we came to you, I think in mid-September, looking for support to replace those pumps with new ones. That original cost did not include the split seals, which is what has historically had issues in those pumps over the past few years. So we asked for a revised quote with split seals in them. So we received a quote from Aquasource, I forget. And with split seals, with motor and pump, each pump would be $75,162, bringing the total pump cost to $225,486. That does not include installation. We're estimating that to be about $15,000. But it would get us all new pumps. I don't know. This is all of the work at the main pump station has been funded through insurance to date. I don't know how insurance will look at replacing pumps since there are technically pumps in place now. But I think it's something that FEMA would consider as mitigation. And so it could be one of those interplays between those two, whatever insurance doesn't cover the FEMA.
Emily, were these the ones that were underwater and not intended to operate underwater?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hence the concern for their longevity.
And the
And
new
they were
ones,
already at their 20-year lifespan before they were submerged.
yeah, but the new ones are built such that they could operate underwater?
Oh, no, the new ones are still not submersible pumps.
Still
The
not.
goal, part of the reason that we added the pump station and the headworks in general to the preliminary engineering and the peer review was to look at ways to make changes to that pump station so that we can keep water out of there, floodgates, whatever it be, make improvements of that nature so that we don't have issues in the future.
Okay, now I'm understanding it a little better. Okay. Any other questions? Go
Do we
ahead.
need to approve the installation cost at some point?
What's that? I didn't hear you.
Do we need to approve the installation cost at some point?
Was included, right?
This is not included in this.
Yeah, we can circle back with that one. I think Blair needed the installation for the rebuilt pumps and it was $3,800, I think, somewhere in that. It was significantly lower than what we had budgeted.
Okay.
For this one, they will have to pull the pumps and it's the entire assembly, so it will be a bigger project. So Bob and I were talking about it last week and I think 15,000 is safe. From seeing other bills that they've submitted, that's probably a little bit on the high side. But there is a 28-week lead time on these pumps. So we have a little time to figure that piece of it out.
Does it make sense to put that 15,000 in here so you're good to go when you get them, or you want to just wait?
It's entirely the pleasure of the board.
I think I'd be inclined to
Do it once and be done with it.
increase
Me too.
the price
Yeah,
and
absolutely,
include, okay.
So we don't have to come.
With a installation cost not to exceed up to 15,000 maybe?
So
right
I'm
now
just gonna just call it 22500.
240, 486.
Do we have to
So
do,
Emily, there is some risk here that insurance or FEMA's not going to pick this tab up, or all of it? Okay. And I assume Kathleen does magic to pay for it then?
We do have some
What's that?
wastewater treatment reserves and
Hmm.
we just have to dip into those. We had been saving for our wastewater treatment facility upgrade.
Okay. Okay, it needs to be done and there's some risk involved and
Yeah.
we can cover it, but okay.
I'll move to authorize the Public Works Department to purchase 3 pumps, including motors and split seals from Aqua Solutions for a total cost of $200.
Has not been delivered yet. So I did speak with them the other day and warn them that it's as of November 22nd. The date that their contract is for the generator, it has to be delivered by the 22nd. So Champlain has now warned the generator company that they will be getting the liquidated damages that the town will be putting on Champlain if the generator's not on site. So at least the conversation's starting. I don't know the lead time still. They don't know. Everything else is ready for the generator. Once it's installed, it's about 15 days worth of work, and they'll be done there. So we're still running on the old system. They're in charge of it if anything goes wrong. So I'm not too concerned about it, but we're definitely keeping it on our radar to make sure it keeps moving quickly. Any questions on that one? I drafted a RFP for construction inspection, just to provide us some other options and avenues, potentially having people available for stormwater inspection, highway projects, water work, sort of playing around with it in different ways so that we're not just specifically using the engineers that design projects to be the boots on the ground also. I think it will give the town a little bit more flexibility. We don't have to take the approach, but a little bit more. We have the option. Sorry, there's weird feedback for a minute. Colonial Drive.
Can I ask you a question about
We
the,
finally got the infrared company to schedule for Monday, November 20th. Looking at the weather, it is supposed to be a high of 35 degrees that day. So I think we're gonna call that off. At the time, I've only used that equipment once, and it was summertime or like August, and it took a considerable amount of time to heat the pavement up to make it malleable enough to work with it and be able to blend new mix in. I also have the concern that now we have been sanding, salting, so all of that material would potentially be getting mixed in with whatever we're blending. So I think we would be destroying our composition more than helping it. We've sort of been going back and forth. Right now where I'm leaning is to just make an 8x8 patch around these structures so that we at least have new mix going in. It's one joint, it will not be the end of the world, but at least it's new mix, it'll be clean mix, and then be done with it. It will give us enough area around there to be able to grade it out smoothly so that our plow trucks aren't hitting it. So I think we're gonna cancel the infrared for Monday.
Hey, Emily, we had
any
a question on Dan had a question on the construction inspection.
yeah, the construction inspection. So currently, all the projects that we have designed are usually inspected by the designer, by the same company.
Correct.
Is there, now, with the diversity of the amount of, the diversity of the inspections that you have in here, is there really an engineering company out there that could service all these various projects? Because when we don't use any companies like that I know of. I don't think Landmark or Otter Creek or.
Yeah, I mean, I worked for one for 8 years or 10 years, and that was my primary job. And I just bounced around to different construction sites inspecting whatever the project was. So there's a number of them. I mean, I work for EIB, GPI does it, but there is a host of them that offer those services. I think it gives a little more flexibility. You don't necessarily need to have somebody on site at all times. I think we would still need coordination with the engineer for doing as-builts or any changes or anything like that. So I think that would still have to be taken into consideration. But it's a lot of towns sort of do it this way. Part of my concern is that by always using the design engineer, you are also using, I think there's value both ways. It's putting additional eyes on the project that don't have the attachment to the actual design of it. They are looking for the finished product. And so I think there's value added there. And I think it gives a different relationship in those capacities.
Okay, will it not cost more because those eyes are not, they're going to have to they're going to have to take time to learn the design and the plan. So wouldn't it cost more in the long run to do it that way? Because the design engineers obviously know it.
I don't know that it necessarily does. I think it's worth putting it out as an RFQ to see what we get for quotes, and then if it's not the approach that we decide to take. I think the other, I've talked to Kathleen about it a little bit too, just to have somebody on staff. It's sort of a way to start looking at other options within the town to see if that would be a valuable tool to have in-house.
Oh, okay. All right, thank you.
Okay, is that it for that one?
Yes.
Okay, the energy committee came to infrastructure meeting last week to propose a grant application for EV charging locations or charging infrastructure throughout town. They get the level 2 charging usually takes like 6 hours for a full charge for a vehicle, and then level 3 is much faster, like half an hour, so we're in that ballpark. So there is a grant available now just for level 2 charging. But there is one soon to be released by the state that will involve level 3 chargers. So we've sort of started looking at locations, trying to figure out the best fit for that, where people would be close to downtown, but not necessarily taking a prime spot. And then how we could accommodate them. I think the reception of the committee is best if you can have 2 of them side by side so that you can use one stanchion essentially, I think. But it has to be on 3-phase power, so there's a few variables involved. So it is more just starting the conversation that we'll be looking at the different scenarios and different locations and probably coming back with a grant application to support some level 3 chargers in the town. And I think Bill's moving forward with getting a level 2 charger, one at Public Works and one at wastewater to support our vehicles that we just purchased.
So how are those electric vehicles working out for you?
They're good. Like, I think we're still learning the ropes. Bob used his to drive to a conference in New Hampshire, and I don't think he got the mileage he hoped, so he had to make some quick pit stops. So it's part of the learning curve. I'm letting Bob learn it, and then he cycles all the information back to me, so it's good.
That'll be funny. Okay, thank you.
They're comfortable. They're great little cars, but they're just, for what I've used it for, it's been fine. So we'll see.
Great. I saw one driving around. It's got this town sticker on the side.
Yeah.
Looks like a Maserati.
Yeah, it did. It is. Looked really fast. Yeah. Just didn't want to run into anything with that thing.
Okay, so let's move on to the infrastructure project financing.
So financing, so we have drafted a notice of intent to bond for the wastewater treatment facility upgrades. We're looking for support for $26 million in bonding, which will, if we get voter approval on that, it will better chance of state funding through the revolving fund in this next cycle. I think we're estimating that project to be around $25 million and then $1 million in engineering, somewhere in that ballpark. But very preliminary stages at this point, so a little hard to
Can I ask a
pinpoint this, but we will get state funding for it, and hopefully additional funding as well.
So without a preliminary design, how do you come up with, is this just a wild guess, the 26 million? I mean, you don't have a preliminary design, so how?
It's based on what projects are going for right now. For other, a lot of towns are sort of going through the same hurdles that we're in. We're making changes, hang on, I have to change close the orders. We're making changes to
Patient, to the state of Vermont's, I'm on the right one, right?
Yep.
Vermont's Clean Water Loan Program for $1.5 million to help finance the final phase of the South Street infrastructure project. The authority to bond will be placed before the public as an article at the 2024 Middlebury Town Meeting.
Second.
Seconded by Farhad. Any questions, comments? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous.
And then we had the
Okay.
Old ones?
declaration of intent.
Yes, and now we need to authorize town clerk Karen Mott.
Yep.
It's not written down there, but
It's on the next motion, right?
No, I'll move to authorize Town Clerk Karen Mott to sign the declaration of official intent, the Town of Middlebury in relation to bonding for the construction of the South Street Phase 5 project for the Town of Middlebury.
Second.
You can
all in
have it.
favor signify by saying aye.
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 Okay, I'm gonna sound like a broken record, but we submitted for the Clean Water State Revolving Fund priority list last winter for Bakery Lane sewer and stormwater improvements. And they have awarded us $944,871 towards that project. I've been working with Otter Creek on the design of that. It's about 90% design. We still need to secure some easements, and figure out how to actually construct it without impacting businesses, because it will heavily impact both Taste of India and Haymaker Run. So we are trying to get creative there. We might have to do it as a 6-week complete shutdown and just pay for the business costs for that time period. And it'll be really hard. They have very staggered deliveries, so it's hard to line up. It'll be a pretty deep excavation. It's complicated. So we still have to figure those components out. But the state did secure these funds for us. It's so similar to the previous 2 projects. We need to show community support as a bond vote, to be able to move the project forward and get the funding allowed.
I'll move to approve submitting by the Town of Middlebury to the State of Vermont Revolving Loan Program an application for $1.2 million for public infrastructure improvements to Bakery Lane. The authority to bond will be placed before the public as an article at the 2024 Middlebury Town Meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Do we need to do
Yep.
that same?
Yep.
Okay, on it.
I'm
Oh,
just
wait.
realizing that I don't know if that's the amount that we should be approving on both of these. I'm so sorry, because that's not the amount that they are awarding us. That's for the bond vote. It's 2 different numbers.
Yeah, isn't that what we have?
What's that?
So the program,
So you just know numbers on the 2 applications for the funding then? Emily, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, like for Bakery Lane, for example, the state has awarded us $944,871. I think the overall project cost will be 1.2 million, so we need to
Sure.
ask for the bond approval for the 1.2 million.
That's what it's in there.
But the actual motion for the application, I don't know.
So 1.2 minus 944 something.
Well, we could have an interpretation that the 997 is less than the 1.2 million, so less is good.
It does-
And so we could modify the application accordingly.
We could even give you the authority in a motion. So let's handle this. We still have to go back and do a motion for the town clerk to
I'll do
sign
that.
the declaration.
I move to authorize Town Clerk Karen Mott to sign the declaration of official intent of the Town of Middlebury in relation to potential bonding for the construction. And this one was
Bakery.
Bakery Lane, right?
Yes.
Yes.
For Bakery
Yeah.
Lane construction project for the town of Middlebury.
Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Okay, and then we need to provide authorization for them to amend the applications in 8B and 8C for the loan for the
For the grant amount.
grant amount.
So you want me to,
Can you do that you can do that in one motion?
Yeah, 8B and C.
I move to authorize town manager to complete the application with the amounts received from the state revolving loan fund on the South Street infrastructure project and the Bakery Lane grant applications. Is that sort of close?
It's understood.
Or words thereof.
Yeah. Beth, can you clean that up for me, please?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, I think you had one more, Emily?
Yeah.
Adams Acres?
One more. Yes, I'm just asking for approval to apply for a grant, it's a stormwater grant, municipal litigation, authors it through beach grants, and it's a really good, funding source for Adams Acres stormwater permit requirements, which is the Morgan Street, what's the other one? Millard?
Wilson.
Neighborhood, they see a lake deed and it would be about 15% roadway surface if we have a chance of receiving the funding. That project's in very preliminary design, which was just sort of to get us to a point of being able to apply for grants. This grant covers 80% of whatever is awarded, and then there's a town, or it would be a split match of 20% between us and the other parties of the permit. It would cover both design and construction.
I move
depending
to
on what they-
I'll move to approve giving Public Works the authority to submit in the future to the state of Vermont a municipal mitigation grant application to help fund the necessary work for the Adams Acres stormwater permit.
Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 So Emily, before we let you go, I'm just curious, you didn't really seem to have much for the agenda this evening. What are you doing with your time?
I've been taking a lot of time off. I appreciate it.
I just wonder how you're gonna see the light of day if all of these projects start coming through.
I feel like once South Street winds down, my life is gonna be so calm, I'm not going to know what to do with myself, so it's good.
I think one thing she should prepare for is for the town meeting, because she's going to get up and explain all these bonding issues to the
She's
town.
she's very good at that. So, okay, well, we really, I know that we've had a lot of these issues and they've been hanging over our head. So the fact that you're hopefully finding a path that brings a lot of the funding back to the town to get these done will be awesome. So thanks for your work.
You're welcome, thank you.
Okay, we'll see you.
It's
It's
your
time.
You guys still awake?
Hey,
No,
I always learn a lot at these meetings.
Oh, yeah. So do we.
Brian, I just wanted to say I'm meeting with Emily on Thursday to write about the bonds.
Oh, that'd be great.
Thank you.
That'd be
Yeah,
great.
thank you.
I look forward to reading that so I can understand better.
I think we might have Judy Harris. with us,
She's there.
here.
Great. Who's indispensable.
Well, she is.
Kathleen, is there a way I could share my screen? We have exciting things to show you here, so. Yes, there we go. I've been promoted. I'm now a panelist.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So Andy, unfortunately, when Dana and I are sitting up here at the table, we're not able to see the interesting faces that you're making on the screen there. So, but the host has disabled screen sharing.
I just changed
Oh,
that.
thank you so much. Great. Well, Dana and Judith and I are delighted to be here with you to give you an update on what's happening at the library. We really haven't spoken to you for a couple of months. A lot's happened in the meantime. Part of that time was devoted to negotiating the contract with our selected architectural firm. And you'll recall that the firm and the design that we opted to go with was Weeman Lamphere, and this was kind of what the back of their conceptual design looked like. And Dana's going to bring you up to speed on some things that have happened since then.
So the design team was definitely able to hit the ground running. We had a lot of community feedback from that design competition. So they were looking at things like figuring out how to save parking while spilling over into that upper lot. Lots of feedback from engineers that visited the site, feedback from historic preservation, and we'll talk more about those coming up. There was a consideration of separating program spaces after meeting with library staff and holding a few other internal stakeholder meetings. So that feedback was being integrated, and then just overall trying to reduce the square footage and bring the budget down, looking at different ways that we could do that. So throughout all these initial efforts, the project team has really continued to believe that a 2-story addition is the way to go. There's a lot of reasons for that, but the two that I would underscore really go hand in hand, and that's safety and long-term operating cost savings. So every floor that we have needs to be staffed, needs to have a circulation desk. Right now, our staffing accommodates 2 circulation desks. If we go up to a 3rd floor, we would need to staff a 3rd desk. I've started to think about what that would look like, and you can kind of do the math. We're open for 55 hours a week. We would need at least the equivalent of 2 full-time staff people to cover that. Weeman Lamphere brought in an architect that is a specialist in library design, and his name is Dennis Humphreys. And he shared with us that in his experience, the long-term employee costs of adding floors never exceed the real or perceived construction cost savings that you get up front. So the project team has really, recommended formally that we continue to explore the 2-story option as the vast preference.
And that's not a conclusion that we all came to immediately. There were some folks who were quite skeptical that 2 floors were the way to go. Ken Perrine was one of those people. I think at our most recent meeting with the architects, we were pretty much unanimous that it's the way to go. And an important factor here also has to do with safety and being able to see what's going on. The sight lines. It's much easier to monitor 2 floors than 3. So we feel pretty strongly about this, and we're happy to talk with you more about it as we go on. We also found that we face a few challenges in this design. The first one was that the front entrance extends in the original conceptual design, goes out to Main Street. I don't know if you can see my mouse here, but I'm kind of circling this extension. And even though the original design was trying, not to overshadow the 1924 building, some people liked it. They thought it activated the Main Street. It acknowledged the fact that we're in a downtown area. Not everybody was a big fan. And in particular, the folks at the Historic Preservation thought that it overshadowed the 1924 building, and they have requested that the entry be taken back actually to behind the edge of the 1924 building there, so that it would actually be just slightly recessed. And here's an early sketch of what that might have looked like. In this sketch, it almost looks like there's something coming out from in front of the building, but in fact, it would not be coming out in front of the building. It would be behind. Well, this in turn reveals our neighbors to the north at 7173 Main Street. So they're thinking about how perhaps we could put in some screening there, maybe plantings or something. But the challenge with having these two entrances now is we have these stairs, and then we have this other entrance, which is going to be the one that we're really going to want people to go into. So we had this great idea that maybe we could have a porch up here with like a patio. People could look down coming by on Main Street. Might look something like this. And the historic preservation people said, no, you're not going to do anything with those stairs. They're integral to the design. That they need to stay. So what we're imagining at the moment is that the stairs are still there, but there's some planters or something at the top that discourage people from trying to get in that door, which will not be open. And that we have a gradually curving, handicapped accessible sidewalk that goes from the sidewalk between the library and the town offices, kind of curving across, and maybe this is just a little bit bigger, and going across to this main entry here. And perhaps there's some seating along there. It's been pointed out that from this point of view, the library is smiling. So that's kind of the current thinking about the front entrance. The original design, many people like this idea of a patio, kind of energizing again the rear, looking down to the potential EDI site and so on. I'm sure you'll be surprised to learn that members of the community were concerned about the loss of parking. And so we had to think about how could we, remember, we're talking about keeping that the 2 stories. If you're going to have 2 stories, it's going to be a little bit bigger. So this is the current thinking. We just got this image today from the architects of a possible way of keeping on 2 stories. Still, the building goes out into the current parking lot, but angling or rotating the parking like that towards the top of the hill that comes up from Bakery Lane. Is this pretty clear to everybody what's happening? Izzy, you look.
Yep.
You got it?
I got it now.
Okay, so here's the road up from Bakery Lane. This is Cross Street over on the right. You turn in here and would be canted a little bit like that. This would require a retaining wall about halfway over that would be sort of a partial retaining wall, and that we'd probably lose a tree there.
Joe, so the broken line is the current parking lot.
Thank you, Farhad. Yes, the dotted line here at the top and also down here at the bottom shows where the current parking lot is located. Here's another way of looking at it. This is that design imposed on a satellite image, so you can kind of get a sense of where the current parking lot is and what is being suggested here. So what this would do, we would be reducing the footprint of the building from that original concept. It would sort of angle a little bit to the east here. And the part of the issue is that if you look at this dotted blue line here, that's the current plot owned by the town on which the library rests. We might need something in the form of a boundary line adjustment. I'm not sure what the lawyers would make of this to extend the library onto this piece of property, which is also town owned. Not quite sure about that. So the third area that I've been getting a real education in has to do with the utilities. If you come up that ramp up from Bakery Lane, from the lower parking lot on the right, you'll see a utilities vault from Green Mountain Power. Back against the Marquee Theater, you'll see about 4 gas lines, which all go along the Marquee Theater about chest high. Then there's this utility pole, which has transformers at the top and carries quite a few electrical and communications lines. And this pole would need to be, or its services would need to be relocated. The engineers think that they could put a new transformer down below this one and make that happen. you'll notice this particular design here of the canted parking lot draws a line between this transformer, which is right behind the town offices, and this utilities vault over here. That's because there are 6 buried conduits underneath where this sidewalk is. There's a 2 6-inch electrical conduits, and I think about 4 for communications. If you go out to the parking lot in the daytime, you can see where those are. So that's of concern. And then also of concern is the fact that our neighbor to the north at 7173 Main Street, which is the nail salon travel agency, has a sewer line that goes right through where we want to put our building. So the engineers are looking at different options for that. What they're hoping is that they could essentially bury that sewer line in a kind of a chase underneath the slab foundation with a manhole cover, here at this end and another one at the other end, because if it were necessary to create space for that here right next to the Marquee Theater, that would be creating some space constraints for us, so on. So Judy, I know that you're on this call. Is there anything you'd like to add to what I've been sharing?
No, I think that's thorough enough for where we are. This, at this stage in schematic design, it's really kind of the age of discovery for lots of things. And I think everyone was a little surprised by the actual paths of the utilities that were discovered. So we're just trying to figure out how to deal with them. I think there's a meeting tomorrow morning with the electrical engineer to talk about how to service 7173 Main for power, because that cannot be buried. So we're just working through the details of it. So far, there are no showstoppers. We're in pretty good shape.
But I think, again, we're still kind of in the process of schematic design. Things are not set in concrete. We're still, making some changes in the interior of the building and the program. But we need to be sure that we are giving our designers and architects, and by the way, this is the old design. This is not the current design. But we need to be sure that we're giving our architects and designers accurate information going forward, so we don't get a few months down the road and then say, oh, no, wait, we want it to be 3 stories. Oh, no, wait, we don't want to do that with the parking lot. I'm going to give you a quick recap of our timeline going forward and then open it up for you all for discussion. Right now, this yellow line shows our schematic design process, which should be going through about mid-January. In December, we'll be holding some more focus groups and opportunities for public input with public meetings. The engineers are working on some things. And then critically, here in early December, there's going to be a progress cost review. And at that point, we'll be able to compare the anticipated cost of the project as it's all kind of coming together with our available sources of funding. So that's kind of the near future as far as that goes. Anything?
I guess I would just echo Joe and say we want to make sure that we're going in the right direction and that we're giving the architects the accurate feedback that they need to keep exploring this option. As Joe mentioned, we don't know exactly what would be needed to build in that upper lot legally, if it would need to be some kind of adjustment, but we're looking for feedback from the board, I suppose, to see if you think this is going in the right direction and if that's something that's feasible from your perspective. Because we were super excited to find out we can save the parking spots. That was huge, exciting news to us.
It is.
And I forgot to mention something. Farhad, do you want to?
No. Tell them your big surprise.
Well, our design construction team has been looking carefully at the lower parking lot, and they think that there's an opportunity to organize the parking down there more efficiently, and by reorienting some things, doing some restriping, to possibly gain as many as 10 parking spaces in that lower lot. So not only with this plan would we be able to not lose any parking spaces, we'd actually be gaining a few.
We could gain those now if you wanted to paint tomorrow.
Questions, comments?
I think it's a clever way of maintaining the
very
parking
unique-
spaces. Yeah. I do.
Kathleen, why do they have to be concerned with the boundary? Are they a separate entity than the town?
So I think this is part of the piece that came to us through Middlebury College.
It is.
Mhm.
So I think we do have to do a boundary line adjustment.
Oh,
Or
okay.
at least look into that, which I will do.
Okay.
This last couple weeks has been really fun and exciting. The design team is really fabulous, and their library consultant, he's remarkable, and he's got a lot of past history with buildings that look like this, and what we can do and what we can't do. And I think he made several changes to the design that they're looking at. But when you get the whole briefing and you hear the whole thing, it's pretty exciting. To include a fireplace, a magic fireplace that doesn't really burn, but
It's the ambiance.
it's with gases and steam or something.
Water vapor.
It's water vapor, and it looks like a real fire. But that is, in the old library, that gathering room can be designed to be flexible to be used as lectures, cocktail parties, or reading rooms, or anything like that. So
I met with Dana earlier today, and she said there was gonna be a bar in there. It's fun.
it's right. It can be.
I put that on my wish list. I haven't seen it in the drawings yet, but
You
we'll
can
see.
have it on wheels.
Yeah,
Coffee bar.
And coffee.
there we go.
Well, no,
Very
one of the suggestions of the consultant was, look, these days you want flexible space. You can put chairs on wheels. You can put bookcases on wheels. You can put tables on wheels. You can move them around in different ways for different purposes.
And you also you understand it's being designed so there can be nighttime access to the conference rooms and stuff like that without actually going into the main library, which would be a great asset for us.
You charge for access to that?
Only if it is a program that's not free and open to the public, or if items are being sold. So for example, if someone wants to have like a private kid's birthday party in the community meeting room, they'll pay. It's a nominal fee. And then likewise, occasionally, maybe this has happened like 3 times in the time I've been there, someone will want to have a program where they are selling their wares. And if they're trying to make a profit, the exception to that is books. If an author is speaking and they want to sell their books, we don't charge them for that.
I was just gonna grab that as the example when you charge.
No, we like promoting literacy and local authors, so that's,
So
Actually,
the historic preservation was a little bit of a surprise, and you had to rework it. Do you project, is there anybody else you need to meet with at the state, or anything that you could potentially put another kink in your design at this point?
I think historic preservation was the big one. I have not gone through this process before, so I guess maybe I'm not the best suited to answer that, but I can check in with Judith and Chris Huston, and I'm sure they would have that perspective. But I think that was the big one that we wanted to make sure we met with them early.
Judith, can you think of more similar hoops we might have to jump through down the road?
No, I don't think so. The engineers have all in their separate disciplines looked at it and have done enough investigation. Fortunately, a lot of them also worked on the town offices. So their familiarity with the site conditions, what the underground situation might be, have all been discovered already. So we have a good team in place that has that background. In terms of the code analysis and all of that, they're very familiar with what the code says about this particular building type. So I don't see any more. I think historic preservation is the only one that tends to be a little subjective. So that's the one we felt the most vulnerable about, and did in fact run into a couple of barriers there.
Well, and that they also told us that, the main reading room that you go into, the kind of historic part, we can't make a lot of changes in that space. Judith, are there any implications that you can think of rotating the parking for a possible future EDI project?
Not that I can think of. The two sites do not overlap. We'll be altering the grades a little bit at the top, and essentially building a retaining wall across probably a third of that steep sloped bank. But I don't see that as having any impact on EDI at all that is negative. I think that was one of the exciting things about this design when we looked at it originally, is that the view from the cross street bridge and the notion that the backs of these buildings were in fact kind of a new front that we needed to consider is consistent with where EDI will go also. So I see them as being complementary for sure.
Questions? Comments? Someone care to make a motion?
Where are we?
So number 9, talking
I'll
about confirming the
Yep.
design is moving along.
move to confirm that the IPL 100 library designs for the Ilsley Library renovation expansion project will be based on a 2-story design.
Second.
Comments or questions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 I
Unanimous?
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I also move to approve the proposed change in the IPL 100 library design to allow for angling of the proposed structure towards the northeast to prevent the loss of any existing parking spaces.
Second.
Comments or questions on that? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Okay.
Thank you.
And
Thank
Tom
you.
Weybridge?
Yeah, and now I'm staying up here.
Yes.
This is really
Thanks, Joe.
exciting.
This is fun here.
Yeah. So about a year ago, the Weybridge Selectboard came to the trustees and were interested in obtaining library cards for their residents. Different members of different surrounding communities have brought this up over the past few years multiple times, but it's never really progressed to this formal inquiry. It certainly never moved this far forward, so it's really exciting. The trustees and I spent a couple months doing research, trying to see what other libraries, how other libraries in Vermont handle this, if there's best practices, kind of thinking what would be the implications for Ilsley, how might we figure out a reasonable and appropriate appropriation in exchange for these library memberships. And so the trustees came up with a proposal, and Kathleen and I met with Megan Sutton of the Weybridge Select Board 2 weeks ago to kind of have an open-ended conversation and see where they are and float this proposal. And so what the trustees are proposing is an annual appropriation based on the number of Weybridge households multiplied by the cost of a non-resident family membership, which is $70. So that works out to about $25,000 a year. Megan took that to her select board, and they are interested in continuing to explore it and are thinking about putting it on or having it as an article at their town meeting. So I'm bringing it to the select board to see if this is something you'd like me to continue moving forward with, in which case I would start working on a draft MOU perhaps, and help Weybridge promote this to their constituents ahead of the vote. I think it would be wonderful for Middlebury to make this move. It would bring more people downtown, which would support vibrancy. It would position us better, I think, for applying for grants, because we can really position ourselves as a regional resource. I think it would build goodwill leading up to any capital campaign for the renovation expansion project, the more people we're serving. And if it goes through, it would serve as a nice roadmap for any other communities that want to kind of buy into the Ilsley system. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
I just wanted to know how much they were going to contribute to the construction project.
It's towards payment on the bond.
Yeah,
Don't
but
make them nervous.
this is just for annual memberships.
They just want to be members. They don't want to own the building.
Yeah.
But I think that amount is a recognition of the use that they get out of the resource already. I think it signals a willingness, I think, to contribute to the tax support for the library.
Like you said, we'll be in a stronger position to apply for grants and stuff, right? Being a regional.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I think this is fantastic. It's something that I was really in favor of when I was on the Middlebury board. I know that already for things other than circulation, we don't restrict things to Middlebury residents or school attendees. And the idea that this resource is one that's used by the surrounding towns, particularly those that do not have their own fully staffed libraries, is, I think, important. And I really appreciate Weybridge bringing this to Middlebury. That's wonderful.
I'd say you've got a vote of confidence, so
Great.
keep moving forward with it.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Do we meet this? We don't meet this week, do
We
we?
don't need a motion.
I think so.
No motion.
It's on my calendar. I don't know why.
We shifted so that we
I
could be
remember.
ready for this meeting.
Kathleen, update on the policy review committee?
Why don't we let David take it?
Yeah, there we go.
Good evening, everybody.
Evening, Dave.
Oh my gosh. How did he do that?
Andy's having too much fun with the graphics.
The hearts.
It's just being irritating is all. That was pretty good. I liked it. When I was years like that. It's good. Best part.
So we had this group's first organizational meeting a few weeks back, and we took care of a couple basic things, how often the group would meet, who would lead the meeting, and then we reviewed more, regarding more substantively some of the initial topics that had been brought to our attention. As a reminder, the purpose of this is not just to review existing policies that the town has that, as you remember, Chris English and Beth and Gary and I think a few others have done for quite they spent a couple of years really going through each policy and bringing them up to a more modern standard. But also to the extent that this board has a public policy curiosity about a topic or an idea or an issue that they've heard about that they'd like to have somebody do a little more work into before it's ready for prime time. This group serves as that if it's needed. And so the ideas would come from you. It would come from your recommendations. And so with that in mind, we had an initial discussion about a topic that was brought up, I think, by a couple board members about short-term rental housing. And the memo's on the website, but we sort of gathered the facts and you can see relative to the ski towns in Burlington, this issue is not anywhere close to the scope that you're seeing in the rest of the state. The percentage of the units in this town that are being used for that purpose are just roughly, around 1% compared to, and there's no trend line going upward, as opposed to some of the other towns in the state that really are facing a more legitimate discussion about housing and how it's being used maybe for non-traditional purposes. A couple other topics briefly were somebody raised the idea of needing some sort of policy in place in the event that this town decides to put cameras in the public space. And that's not something we have to reinvent the wheel on. If there's other cameras in Burlington or Montpelier, we certainly can get a policy similar to those that would satisfy the town attorney and then police department. There was a topic brought up about on-street winter, the town's winter overnight parking ban. That's something that I've done initial research on, and should the group want to continue exploring that, there's a few communities in Vermont that have some policies that are different than I think the normal policy, which is just don't park overnight during winter in case we got to plow. So the group will the idea is that the ideas that are of value, they'll return back to the select board with recommendations. And then as always, as this group has other ideas to ask the group to look into, they'll do so. So that's the summary of the first meeting. And we've got a couple applications, Kathleen, right? Two,
Yes.
three of folks who've shown some
We
interest.
have some heavy hitters that have applied to be on the policy review committee, and that we'll be bringing to the next meeting.
Next meeting.
Wow.
Let's see.
There's,
Good
I'd
point,
heard
yeah.
that, I'd heard from at least one that had applied, so.
and
Well, I enjoyed how the current members voted each other into an
Yeah, it was,
office, and it was unanimous actually, which was pretty good.
Civil election among the two members. A lot of competition between the two. So, and the other thing I forgot to mention was I think somebody had raised to Kathleen that this select board, I think, had a policy or has a policy that probably needs to be refreshed regarding electric vehicle purchasing. If that rings a bell from 4 or 5 years ago, maybe a little less than that,
Mhm.
3 or 4. And just revisiting, I think, what it actually requires versus suggests, and maybe it's an opportunity to revisit what you'd actually like to have as a requirement in the rules versus a broader goal or hope or something. So there are different kinds of things, but I think the premise is the ideas that are, where there's really substance to it, the group can bring back to the select board recommendations. And frankly, the ideas where maybe the takeaway is, no, this isn't a good idea, we can present that too before it goes too far down the rabbit hole. So any questions about it?
The Energy Committee in the minutes that we got indicated that they were interested in reviewing that vehicle policy. So we should let them know that indeed we're looking at it.
Okay.
It does look like it's sunset because it said it would be reviewed in a year and we're on.
This committee really, when I first thought about policy review committee, it sounds like one of the more boring things I could do in my spare time. But I really like the fact that you're looking at issues that we want to talk about here and that we want to address, but never have time. And now you're addressing these issues and can bring them to the board. So it's exciting, man. I'm happy about what you're going to do.
It's not to have them kind of academically talk for the sake of talking, but if there's a thing this group wants to dig into, I think that's really, it's how you ensure you're using people's time well, and also they're not just kind of having aesthetic
I think it also can help with the problem of this board getting together for a couple hours every 2 weeks, the select board, and a whole lot of things need to be done outside of that cycle, and it's not all falling on David and Kathleen to do the research and bring things to us.
No, I think it's great. Yeah.
Set things down and get it back in a couple months with some research and some ideas.
I mean, it's always been small just for interest, right? But if we have a couple people interested, can they all be included, or?
This group is looking for larger 5 to 7, was that? the
That's what I
number?
saw.
So we had 3 before, because they were reviewing more existing.
Yeah.
Plodding through that. Now we're talking about.
So it's, we'll see. I
More.
think we've gotten 3 or 4, and we have 4 or 5 members on the group, and I think especially if we have folks with kind of different experiences, that helps. As we, if you think of it like clay, sort of building something from scratch in some cases. So, yeah, we'll bring the new names to the board, I guess, in the near future.
And I also think there's a great opportunity if we're working on a specific policy for a couple months to bring an expert on that topic, just as someone to come to our meetings and share their perspective. You know, if there's a policy that impacts a certain group of people or employees of the town, instead of bringing them along to talk about policies all about the town, just bringing them on to talk about the policy that they're an expert in is an opportunity that I think we have.
Yeah, pulling, even if it's certain town staff, pulling Bill in, for example, about the park, just obviously there's certain institutional knowledge that he would know better than the rest of us. So that's a good point.
Great.
Cool.
All right.
Well, there's the update.
Thanks,
Thank
Dave.
you.
Thank you.
Heather?
Yep. I reviewed the check warrants and found them in good order. I move to approve total expenditures in the amount of $1,058,501.70, consisting of $936,246.89 for accounts payable and $122,254.81 for payroll for the period of October 25th, 2023 through November 14th, 2023.
Second.
Seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Okay. Start with you, Heather. Board member concerns.
Not really concerned, but I did see on the Middlebury Police Department's Facebook page the other day their advertisement for their annual holiday toy drive and donating new unwrapped toys to the police department. So just wanted to put that out there and remind people if they were interested. I'm sure they would also accept monetary donations if people would prefer. So just want to remind everyone that that's an opportunity this holiday season if they were interested.
I didn't know they did one. Give them some toy tractors.
Yeah.
Rod?
We were talking about the library, about the use of the event spaces. Interestingly, the Manchester Library does it all the time. They rent out their spaces. They do meeting rooms, small cubicles for somebody to bring a laptop and work, and you can pay a fee for that. I thought that was very interesting. On that line, I think the way they are planning to do the community room as if you have a private event, to charge them, I think that makes sense. I think, yeah. So no, that was my comment on that. And everybody happy Thanksgiving.
Oh, that's right, we won't need anything before that.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh, that's right, Thanksgiving. Yeah, Isabel?
I got nothing.
All right, Dan?
I just wanted to emphasize how interesting it is what's going on in the library right now. It's just at a point where it's really fun, but also to recognize that Judith is invaluable to that group. She is remarkable. Her expertise is we couldn't do it without her. So,
Also how the designing is opening up to us, right?
Yeah.
How it just the way they worked on the parking lot and stuff, it's amazing.
Judith has been really instrumental in moving several town projects
right, I know.
along.
It's just my first time
the
I've
whole,
been around her.
PD reuse project,
Town offices.
Town offices.
town offices. But what she also had something to do with the Rangers or the DPW, but didn't she look at the Ranger station? Oh no, Public Works.
She helped us
evaluation
with
of
the
Public
evaluation
Works.
of all of the buildings.
Yeah. So she's really quietly been real instrumental in helping the town of Middlebury on several projects. So.
Kathleen has her on her work chart as special staff.
Yeah, she does. That's right. She represents herself that way too. So, another thing, just I'm amazed at the crime that's going on in this state right now. I haven't lived here as long as many of you have, but man, there's more murders and people being shot and violent crime. It's we're becoming like every other state. Not only losing our environment and smoke and everything, but this is just crazy.
Two of them are teenagers, right?
No,
The one who-
I don't know how Burlington's keeping up with it. It's like a,
They're not. They're
They're not.
losing businesses. and-
yeah.
That's all right, they can come here. Businesses can come down here.
Going to Williston.
Yeah, Wilson's picking up.
Take some.
Yep, Essex.
We need housing though. Businesses can come, but their employees can't.
Yeah.
We've got no housing for the employees.
Yeah. Let's go then.
Let's build it. What do you got, Andy?
I've got nothing, I can't wait to get home. It's lovely down here, there's so much amazing music, I got to catch a Federers game the other night. They have real hockey fans, I was surprised, but I am, ready to go. It's too flat, it's too warm.
Where are you?
I'm in Nashville.
On that?
Oh, were you there for the TAG conference? That was last week.
I am here for the Guidewire Connection Conference. Anyway. a
Wow.
whole lot of-
Sounds pretty exciting.
That's,
Oh, it's amazing.
So some members of my office went to the TAG conference in Nashville last week, and they presented at staff meeting today some information. And one of the things they presented was that everywhere you go, they're building in Nashville, and they estimate 100 people a day moving into Nashville. Talk about a housing, housing problem.
we can't handle 3 people a day. One person a day would be overwhelming for us.
Yeah. So if you want to go where it's happening,
Yeah, but it won't be the same if it keeps at that pace. Okay,
Anyway,
we have need for, first, I just want to say that being thankful, I'm thankful for our town staff and everything everybody does. And I'm thankful, I've been enjoying working with all of you. And so I hope you all have a nice Thanksgiving and are able to spend it with family and friends.
Thank you.
thank you, Brent. Same to you.
We have need for an executive session. Would somebody like to lead us into that?
I've got it right here if you want.
Yes,
me to.
please do.
In accordance with Vermont's open meeting law requirements, I move that the board find that premature general knowledge of the consideration of legal matters would clearly place the select board at a substantial disadvantage because the select board risks disclosing its legal strategy if it discusses the legal matters in public.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. I further move that the board enter into executive session to discuss the legal matters under the provisions of Title I, Section 313A1 of the Vermont statutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
uh,
Okay, we're in executive session at 8:55 on some legal matters.